meeting is recorded. My name is Barbara Zoller-Gringer. I'm the co-chair of the Parks and Recreation Committee, and I am delighted to welcome all of you here. And as I mentioned, we have a very busy agenda tonight. As usual, let me repeat, and we appreciate it if people mute themselves, and that when you do speak, that you are respectful of others. And so this meeting is hereby called to order, and we ask to keep their videos on, and again ask you that you remain muted if you're not speaking. We welcome questions when we have time. You're welcome to put questions in the chat, and if we run out of time tonight, the district office will get back to you with answers. And we are also always committed to providing access for all of our neighbors. So if you require a special accommodation or assistance to be able to participate fully in these meetings, please contact the district office, if possible, 72 hours before any public meeting. So I'm going to ask now our secretary for this evening, Dwight Smith, and thank you, Dwight, to call the roll of the committee members.
Andrew Leskiewski. Barbara, of course you're here. Candace Harrison on.
Here.
On. Did I hear Candace?
Yes.
Yes, I'm just saying I was here.
Okay, great, thanks. And Carolyn Cumming-Wary. Jennifer Melby. Suzanne Clint.
I'm here.
Oh, great. Okay. So, Lenny Levinson. All right.
I know
So
he's planning to be here, so maybe he's just running a little late.
So it looks like we have 5 folks.
Okay.
Thank
you. All right. Thank you, Dwight. I want to ask for approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve? Andrew, second. Jennifer, all in favor? Okay, none opposed. Thank you. Then we go to the minutes from February 8th. We have one correction. Lenny mentioned to me that his name had been inadvertently left out, and that was my fault. So we'll add his name. Were there any other corrections to the minutes? All right, hearing none, I'm going to proceed, assuming that we have consensus on the February 8th minutes. So thank you for that.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to ask our presenters, if possible, to try to stay to about 10 minutes in their presentation. And since we do have so much on the agenda, the first presenter tonight, is it Naomi Rodriguez? Hi, did I pronounce that almost right? Thank you. All right, and you're going to be talking about the Photoville art installations in Clumber Park, and you're from the New York City Parks Department. You're the public art coordinator, so welcome. We're delighted to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm here joined by the artist Lara Saget for the installation at Clumber Corner, which you can definitely speak more about. I'll just give a quick summary about it, and she
I'm sorry. Can I just interrupt you for 1 second? I wanted to ask you if you needed a letter of support from us tonight.
No, we do not.
No.
But thank you so much for offering.
All right. Thank you.
So she will be installing at Clumber Corner, which is right in between the Brooklyn Bridge and the BQE. So she can definitely speak more about it, but I just want to present the entire thing. And then we will turn it over to Laura Romanos, who is the executive director of Photoville. So Laura, if you want to present your screen so you can show the visual of your art piece.
Yes. Okay, share content. There we go. So I will be creating this sculpture right in Clumber Corner on Prospect and Adams Street, and it's entitled "The Roots of Tuckahoe Marble," and it's fiscally sponsored by the New York Foundation for the Arts, with a generous grant from the Brooklyn Arts Council. So it's actually going to be bronze, Tuckahoe marble, and glass. So this piece is made or will be made out of bronze. It's currently being bronze cast in Oregon, and then it will be shipped to New York. And it's actually a piece of Pando, which is part of, Pando is the largest organism by mass, we think, in the world. And so this piece was collected from Pando. It was fallen, nothing was taken or harmed. And then I cut it in several pieces and shipped it off to be cast in bronze. And then on top of it, or embedded within it, will be this Tuckahoe marble and glass sculpture. So Tuckahoe marble is actually the marble that they used to make the Federal Building and the Washington Memorial Arch, etc. And I actually was able to source this marble from a former marble quarry, which is currently being turned into a Marriott Suites in Tuckahoe, New York. And this marble will be encased inside of molten glass, and then that will be embedded within the bronze. And additionally, on the NYC Park sign, there will be a QR code that will be scannable for viewers. And what will be available is actually the sound of this piece of Pando, which I recorded on my I drove across the country in December, recording trees with this device that translates the electrical differential between the leaves and roots of trees into sound. So what will be available is actually the sound of Pando, or of this tree. Yeah, that is what I am planning. It will also be linked via a website to the entire journey that I took across the country. But the piece in Clumber Corner is this sculpture coupled with the audio of Pando itself. So I guess I'll open it up to questions in the interest of time.
So maybe I missed this, but is there a name to the sculpture?
It's called The Roots of Tuckahoe Marble.
Roots of Tuckahoe marble. Right. Okay. I have a question, Madam Chair.
Sure.
So the Pando tree is something that's grown here. You got it in Oregon, or you just got it bronzed in Oregon? Where does the tree? Just for curiosity, I haven't heard of Pando trees in New York, frankly.
Great question. Yeah, I did not clarify that. Yeah, so it's being cast in Oregon, and the tree itself is actually in Fish Lake National Forest in Utah. So I drove across the country in December looking for survivor trees. So basically looking for trees that had withstood massive fires, drought, etc. Pando in Fish Lakes National Forest in Utah is, we think, the largest organism by mass, and it's a giant interconnected root system. So all of the trees in the forest share one singular root system. And we think it's like 80,000 years old.
Wow. Okay, thank you. So just want to sort of follow this.
Sure.
So since it's all on one root system, this is just a branch, effectively, of, I'm looking at I don't know where it is, but I was looking at Pando Grove. So all of those, what look like fully grown trees, are just stems of one root system.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, great. Now, final question. Don't want to take up too much time. Where did you come up with this? How did this concept of a roots from Tuckahoe marble, which, is not the tree itself. the genesis of the concept, please.
Yeah. So basically, like monuments, you know, and marble, etc. Like Tuckahoe marble, they quarried in the Inwood formations, like in 1700s, 1800s. And like a lot of times we think of monuments as something that are going to live forever and last forever, but they really don't. Like, etc. And the roots are
Yeah. I guess we all.
Do we have feedback? Can you hear me?
Now you're okay.
Now you're
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So the roots are kind of like, you know, stronger than we'll ever really be able to understand. And also, I don't know if you've like read Susan Simard. She's a professor out of University of British Columbia, and she talks about how all trees are connected, and they communicate via the fungal webs around their root tips, etc. So how this interconnected root system really, like, it goes beyond kind of human comprehension. It's infinite. So in terms of like monumentality and marble and these very kind of human generated things, I was thinking about what is stronger than that. So this piece of glass and marble will be embedded within this root system, but it's a monument, it's a sculpture, but it's really about how powerful the roots really are.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, I live close by, so I have a practical concern. So Clumber Corner, I'm pretty certain is the sledding hill that kids use in Dumbo. So I'm definitely concerned about where this would be placed in that park, because regardless of whether people should or shouldn't be sledding, they do sled there, and we want to avoid accidents from that.
Thank you so much.
Sorry. Yeah, no, absolutely. We are actually going to meet on site with the park manager to determine the best and safe spot for this sculpture. It's also going to be anchored with concrete footing, so it won't go anywhere, so to speak. And we will definitely have all of that in mind when choosing a spot.
Because it's, you know, it's in the Parks Department, but it's not like, you know, it's sort of, I don't know how you would describe this park, but it's, you know, it's certainly not a park people know by name, and probably doesn't get use, it really doesn't get use, I think, beyond the sledding. Certainly a lot of foot traffic going by it, but in terms of use.
Now, my screen has frozen.
Yeah, I don't know, mine's not.
Yeah, we're fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. So in my view, because I assume we didn't, I don't know that we talked about how long the sculpture is going to be there, but I assume it's 12 months at least. Yeah. So, you know, in my view, trying to visualize on the top is where it would be safe, because anything on the bottom, kids are careening down.
Yeah, that's why I was matching it. Sorry.
Yeah, so really make sure that the sleds are coming down. I mean, I won't even let my kids do that anymore, but it is commonly used for that. But the sleds are coming down, careening onto Washington Street.
No, thank you so much for voicing that, and we will definitely keep that in mind for our.
That's what we're here for.
If we don't have any more questions, I would like to pass it on to Laura so she can present on Photoville that will be installing at Anchorage Plaza.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Nice to see many of you are friendly faces, so nice to see you all and nice to meet the rest of you. Laura Romanis, I'm the Executive Director and co-founder of Photoville. We're a nonprofit in Dumbo. We're actually celebrating 10 years this year in Dumbo. Never thought the fact that we can still stay in the neighborhood is kind of miraculous. And especially during COVID, we spent the last year, we basically went against everyone's, their best judgment. And we had a really, really successful festival last year in September through December. Many of the exhibitions are still up in all 5 boroughs, thanks to the public parks. And we have just put out a call for our festival. So we're going to be back again this fall, September through December in all 5 boroughs. Many exhibitions will be in Brooklyn Bridge Park, and also hopefully in other parks in Brooklyn and spaces. So I'll probably come back later on in the year to talk to you all about that. But for today, I want to talk about our fence project. And many of you have probably seen the photos that are in Brooklyn Bridge Park every summer. You see them on Water Street, on Pier 2, it changes. I was wondering if I could share my screen, if I can, because I can just quickly run through. Brooklyn Bridge Park, which it is amazing, thank you, let me just share this, has been, it's been developed and it's great, but then we've all noticed there is now a lack of fencing. We are so in love with the space on Washington Street and Old Fulton Road. So our big fence project that is now in 11 cities across North America. We're talking about Atlanta, Brooklyn, Calgary, Denver, Durham, Houston, New Orleans. We're in Fargo. I mean, the list goes on. Canada, I said Canada. Here's some photos. Some of them are pixelated, I apologize. But we're in Brooklyn Bridge Park and it's our home. Brooklyn is our home now. So I think moving forward, the fence is going to be in other areas, not just in Brooklyn Bridge Park. So for this year, we are basically proposing that we will have 200 feet on Water Street, just where the plaza is under the bridge, where Brooklyn Bridge Park is currently developing their new plaza. And then we will have the rest of it on Old Fulton Street, Prospect Street, and Washington Street, where we currently have the Photoville exhibition. So here is one here on Washington, and then Kennedy Carter's here on Old Fulton. And here's another. We had some major gusts of wind last night. So Dave actually went in and just did some reinforcing earlier today. And honestly, the weather in the last 2 months have been really extreme. And so we've learned some major lessons, and we're going to be using a lot more sturdier zip ties and wires like we do in Canada. So it was just, you have to go through the experience to kind of learn a few things. But it's 40 photographers from all over the world. And we also have some great Brooklyn bred photographers also on this, but it's hugely popular and I'm really happy to have it here and to keep it still in Brooklyn. So any questions?
Thank you, Laura. It's good to see you again. Questions for Laura?
Yeah.
Suzanne?
Yes, Laura, hi.
Hi.
Could you just put up, I'm sorry, you just unshare, could you just put up again the screen to show where the new parts will be?
Absolutely. Sorry, I was like trying to, I know I have limited time, so.
But I know,
absolutely.
I shared last time you came that the Dumbo community really supports Photoville.
Thank you.
And
yeah, so you can see here, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but Washington Street, Prospect, and then Old Fulton. So all along here.
Yeah.
And
you're there now.
We're there now. So we're basically replacing what we already have there.
Okay.
And Old Fulton, it was the first time we've actually ever exhibited there. And we were pleasantly surprised that it was really, it had quite great foot traffic. And it's such a great canvas and no one's ever utilized it. So we're really proud to keep that going. So we'll have a
super ugly walk. So it's like nice to do something to beautify it, I think.
Walk down there every day. I also think it's like I curate for my own pleasure, to be honest. Like I'm like, this is great to look at now.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? I'm going to give you my email. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to email me. Like I said, Photoville, the festival is coming back later on at the end of the year. So I'll be in touch with all of you about that. And we have proposals already open. So people can submit proposals today.
Thank you. I just want to mention that our committee members, Eleni and Carolyn, have joined us. So thank you for being here. All right, our next presentation concerns Fort Greene Park, the Spanish Memorial Plaque, and we're fortunate to have the Parks Department Deputy Director of Art and Antiquities, Jennifer Lances.
Hello, how are you, everybody? I'm just going to share my screen, so just give me one moment.
Jennifer, while you're doing that, is this something that you need a letter of support from us on?
Yes, we will need a letter of support because we will be submitting this to both the Landmarks Preservation Commission and the Public Design Commission.
Thank you.
Yep. So today I'm going to talk to you about the Spanish Memorial Plaque. This is a former monument that we are proposing to recreate and relocate within Fort Greene Park. So just to give you an idea of where this was, it is in Fort Greene Park up at the Prison Ship Martyrs Monument Plaza. You can see on the left part of your screen where the original Spanish Memorial Plaque was and where we are proposing the new Spanish Memorial Plaque to go. So just to orient you, on the top right-hand corner, that's the Visitor Center in Fort Greene, and then the center is the Prison Ship Martyrs Monument, which is the large column in the center of the park. So to just give you some background, this is what the original plaque was. It's an oversized bronze plaque on a large granite plinth. It was given to New York by the country of Spain in 1976 for the bicentennial of the American Revolution. This plaque it honors like the 156 Spanish prisoners who were lost in the prison ship event, where around over 11,000 prisoners were held on British ships in the East River, who passed away and ultimately found home in the crypt at the Prison Ship Martyrs Monument, which is the larger plaza and monument that honors all of those individuals. So the monument itself was dedicated June 5th in 1976, and King Juan Carlos I of Spain came to dedicate the monument. In the rush to accommodate visiting royalty, unfortunately, this design and the monument did not go through Parks Review, and it did not go through Public Design Commission review. And at that time, the park was not yet landmarked, so it did not have to go through that review. It was actually not until the piece was installed and it was already dedicated that PDC, or the Art Commission at the time, gave it a certificate. And not only did it kind of bypass the permitting process, but it kind of bypassed our design review process, which caused a series of flaws in the design. Just to name some of the issues that came up, it's a very large single bronze plaque, which we would never recommend given the instability and chances for warping. It was skyward facing, so it was really prone to intense kind of weather erosion. It was also poured unevenly. So in those thinner areas of the plaque, that kind of pooled water, it completely eroded the bronze. There was spelling and grammatical errors. For example, Brooklyn was spelled with an I instead of a Y. Those were then filed down, and then replacement letters were mechanically attached. But they didn't withstand the test of time. There was also large gapping between the bronze itself and the granite plinth, which meant water got into it and caused, with freeze thaw, the warping of the plaque, and eventually it kind of totally popped out of its granite base. And it also, it's a large flat surface, so it was pretty prone to vandalism. Skateboarders used it a lot. Children treated it like a trampoline and would jump up and down on it, and severely dented it, and it was also used as a urinal. So in the 1990s, the plaque, which was severely damaged, was removed and put into storage. The granite base actually still remains to this day in the location that it originally was placed. So just to give you an idea, this is where it is now. And the Fort Greene Park Conservancy has actually been using this as a prompt for local artists for a couple of temporary art installations recently. So you might have seen some small mosaics in that void. This is an example, these are photographs of the original plaque. You can see it was almost completely severed in half, large holes, lots of warping. You can see, maybe you can't. There's an eye here. It's for Brooklyn. So in 2015, our office, Art and Antiquities, actually with the help of the Fort Greene Park Conservancy, chose to pull the plaque, the original, out of storage and install it within the visitor center. It's hard to tell from these photos, but if you enter the visitor center through this doorway, that's actually this doorway. So you enter the vestibule and you pass it as you come into the visitor center. So that kind of gives you an idea of where the original plaque is. And now we have received a lot of interest from the community, as well as support from the Conservancy, the Queen Sofia Spanish Institute, and Iberdrola, who is the sponsor, to recreate and relocate this monument. And of course, we don't wish to recreate the flawed design. I think that this is a really great opportunity for us to address the kind of historical content, but do so in a design that's more in keeping with the traditional kind of historic nature of the park design. And it's the hope of parks, but also the supporters and partners, that this will highlight Hispanic contributions to American history. So what we are proposing is a smaller plaque, which would measure about 20 by 25, inset into a boulder. The boulder would be around, I'd say 2 feet in height by 5 feet in width. The plaque would, of course, be updated so that the text doesn't have erroneous spellings, grammatical issues, etc. So this gives you an idea of kind of what that would look like. We're proposing moving it from the western arm of the plaza to the pathway that leads from the visitor center to the Prison Ship Martyrs Monument. There is a small planting bed there that we're suggesting placing that near, and then we can also extend that planting bed around this plaque to better incorporate it. We wanted it to, of course, remain near the Prison Ship Martyrs Monument because of the individuals that are being honored by the plaque. But the western wing, it's kind of a little bit of an ignored area. Not many people go by it. And we wanted it to, it just feels like that space could be better used for something else in the future, probably. And also given the size, it would feel, if we did use the boulder, which is more in keeping with just in general kind of memorials of this nature, it would feel really weird to put a boulder in the center of like a paved plaza. This is much more natural. So these are just other renderings to give you an idea of different viewpoints, just to help kind of locate where you are. Another reason, you know, not only putting smaller plaques on boulders, just is kind of in keeping with the tradition of memorials of this kind within our park system, there are also a number of errant boulders and rock outcroppings in the park already. So in a sense, this will echo those existing features within the park. We are hoping that should we get approvals, that the installation of this plaque would go in sometime in the next year, but that is somewhat to be determined based on some of the delays that COVID has brought on and additional kind of reviews that the city does. So I think that is it. I will leave my presentation up in case anyone needs to reference images for the time being. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. We had a question in the chat asking about why was the determination not to put it back where it was?
So we decided not to put the piece back where it was because, like I was saying, it's somewhat of an empty space. A lot of people don't congregate there, or those who do are individuals who help contribute to some of the damage on the original park plaque. So we felt that it was more appropriate for those coming into and out of the Prison Ship Martyrs Monument space to kind of see that acknowledgement. It still ties directly to the Martyrs Monument, but it also ties to the Visitor Center, which has the original plaque. And also, though it's closed right now because of COVID and they're in the process of changing the exhibition space, it kind of has a general history of the neighborhood and the park. And so we felt like having that exhibition space and the monument and kind of passing through, passing by the new Spanish memorial plaque kind of was more appropriate than kind of pushing it off to the wayside where the original was and where it continued to be vandalized. I'm happy to take any other questions.
Chair Zalagranger, we're not able to hear. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Jennifer, well, first I was asking if there were any more questions from the committee members. So then when do you need, Suzanne, you had a question?
Well, could you just repeat exactly what you're asking for the letter of support for
Yeah.
the pieces?
So what we're looking for is support from the community board in the recreation of the piece, as well as the relocation of the piece from that western wing to the pathway between the visitor center and the Monument Plaza.
And the piece, the plaque, does relate to the monument, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to reiterate, the plaque itself acknowledges the 156 Spanish prisoners who were held on the prison ships by the British during the American Revolution. So those are 156 individuals that are acknowledged in the plaque. That also the larger prison ship Martyrs Monument, that large monument in the park, is the crypt and the monument to all 11,500 individuals that passed during that event. So this was in the 70s, it was installed as an acknowledgement of kind of the Spanish contribution in the American Revolution, which is often overlooked.
And how close would like give us because from the photos they don't look connected to me in terms of locale, but I'm really not that familiar with that part of Fort Greene Park, and so how connected are they? Yeah, Letty, I know you're there all the time. That was one of to me this should seem like there's a relationship there.
Lenny, you need to unmute first.
What did you grow? Here I am. Thank you. I do live right near the park, and I am familiar, very well familiar with the area up there. My problem with the location that you want to place it is the same as what Suzanne just said. It does seem a little far from the memorial itself, given the size, the downsizing of it. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong. But it also seems that it's very close to that water fountain, and where they also leave a little doggy water dish attached to that fountain, just to the other side of the path that goes to the Monument Plaza there. It seems like a better place, a closer place would be more appropriate to the monument. That's my input here.
I mean, I think one thing that we also considered, because we did share this with the partners as well as the local chapter of the DAR, was that in the original installation of the plaque, it added, essentially it was adding on to an existing monument. And that's not something that we would really advise, and probably wouldn't have advised at the time of the installation should Parks had the chance to do a review. We feel that the memorial, the prison ship martyrs monument is a monument unto itself, and to add to it is not really appropriate. So we do want to distance it slightly. But we at the same time don't want to pull it too far from that plaza.
Yeah.
So I mean, we can definitely talk with the partners about whether along that pathway, because I do believe you're correct. It's kind of a bit adjacent to that water fountain. We could talk about the placement of that boulder along that pathway, if there's a more appropriate location, so it's kind of not at that juncture point. What had appealed to us at the time was that there was that already existing planting bed, and that we could extend the bed so that we could add horticultural or like kind of enhancements around the plaque. But you bring up really good points in terms of we wouldn't necessarily want dogs to be drinking lots of water and
it doesn't seem like a place for a memorial plaque next to a water fountain, just that close to a doggy water fountain and people water fountain.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Andrew?
Yeah, I was kind of concerned also that the height of that boulder and also being in exactly a pathway that parents with dogs walk their pets, that boulder will be the recipient of exactly the other plaque. A lot of yours.
Yeah, and you're making a very good point. And I think that to a certain extent, we could alleviate some of that no matter where it would be placed by putting a planting bed with enough distance between the pathway and the boulder around the memorial. That's been very successful in our parks. Plants seem to be a better deterrent for climbing, all sorts of activities that we don't wish to see at our monuments. Our plants are much more effective than any fence could ever be. I don't know what the mental reasoning is for that, but that will help deter it. But you make a very, very good point. we don't want to see the same issues happening.
I could see plantings around it. It's sort of like a horseshoe or semicircle this way. I don't know if you can see it with on the monitor.
Yeah.
To get the perspective. And then the monument beyond it. The center, the other side of that little path that goes to the plaza, beyond that water fountain and in a little bit more towards the monument, the little flower bed could be nice there. In fact, I happen to do some gardening there as a volunteer, and we would be happy to do any more plantings to make that park nicer at any time. So,
great.
Any more questions from the committee? Are there? Yeah, Suzanne?
Unmute.
Thank you. Jennifer, can you speak a little bit more about the community discussions that you've had, which community groups and who you've spoken with?
Yeah, so originally the discussion started in about 2015 with the local chapter of the DAR and the local council member at the time, which I think was still Cumbo. And so the original conversation started with them and expanded to include the Fort Greene Park Conservancy. And then at that time, the Queen Sofia Spanish Institute, which is not based in the community, but they also became a partner given their interest in Spanish culture. The local electeds have been notified, as well as ask the Conservancy kind of if there are any other individual community groups that we should approach, but wasn't any advice on if there were specific groups that we should approach. So if the community board does have a suggestion about anyone that we might be missing, we would love to reach out to them as well.
Well, isn't there a Fort Greene Association?
I would think so.
There is.
You know, and there are also the NYCHA houses around the park. Does anyone else have any suggestions for groups that could be? Oh, thank you, Denise. Yes. Yeah, so that would be a good group to reach out to. All right, so that Mr. Fine, can you just tell us who you are?
Yes.
And unmute. Thank you
Yes.
for unmuting.
Yes. My name is Todd Fine. I'm a PhD candidate in history at the CUNY Graduate Center. And as a historian, I'm very concerned about both the idea of changing the text of a historical plaque because there are grammar errors, or especially if those changes aren't clear. I mean, the text of the plaque as done for the bicentennial is part of its existence as a historical monument. It's not the Parks Department's burden to correct plaques. If we were to correct plaques throughout the city as a matter of policy, we would be correcting every plaque in the city, and we would be damaging their existence as historical artifacts. Second, in my opinion as a historian, the value of this plaque right now is embodied in its presentation by the Spanish, government and Spanish people to the United States on the bicentennial at that specific location as a historical event associated with the bicentennial. I don't think people are interested so much in that Spanish contribution. I mean, if that was the idea, those groups can do their own monument. But this monument this marker, in my opinion, should be kept as it is in that location to mark that historic event that occurred there and was marked there. I don't think it has much additional value besides that. And if there's other intentions that people have to honor that contribution of Hispanics, they should do their own monument that you can put on a boulder somewhere else. But in my opinion, a historical marker that was embodying a specific place needs to stay in a specific place as a historical artifact. Thank you.
So I'm happy to talk about those two items. One, the correction. It was never intended that the plaque was to have those errors. I don't think that we want to immortalize those errors because it was very soon after the installation that the individuals, the country of Spain, identified the errors and then quickly acted to rectify them. And I think that the fact that they did the best that they could to actually change their errors, we're trying to acknowledge and honor what they had originally hoped that the plaque was supposed to do. So I think just saying that because they made an error that we should immortalize it is not something that we would hope to do, and I don't think that they would want to. And we've been in discussions with the Spanish consulate as well, and they also wouldn't have expressed that they don't want the erroneous language to be recreated just because it was kind of a rushed project when it was installed. So that's kind of why we're suggesting those corrections, because it happened so quickly that in terms of the corrections, it's not even like the public had time to associate the plaque with that kind of quirky detail and have like a tender feeling about that kind of those errors. It doesn't have much meaning. And then in terms of the location, I think that ultimately the country of Spain and now the partners, their whole intent of the plaque is that they want to acknowledge the 156 individuals who passed during the American Revolution. They're like the dedication by the king at the exact location on the Western Wing. The plaque isn't about the event of the king being there. What is being memorialized is those individuals who contributed their lives to the American Revolution. So I don't want to I guess, or we don't want to kind of get hung up on the dedication event as the thing that we're honoring. We're honoring those who passed away during the prison ship martyrs, or the prison ship event, I guess we could call it. So that's kind of, we aren't suggesting like a completely different area within the park. We still want it to be tied to the area where the dedication took place, which was in the general plaza. But so that's kind of our reasoning about the location, or why we don't, we're not hung up on having it at the exact same location of where the original plaque was.
Lenny, you need to unmute, please.
Sorry about that. So is it, am I correct? My understanding is that the Spanish government, or consulate at least, is on board with the changes to this plaque?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I don't have that much problem with it being moved from one side to the other of the monument based on the problems of that granite setting. And that, knowing that they're on board with this, then I have no real problem with it being downsized and replaced. Again, that's my opinion.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments from the board members or from members of the public attending? Okay, thank you. All right, so Lenny, I have a question for you, and Jennifer, thank you for that and answering those questions. Are you still proposing that they move the boulder to a space other than where it's been proposed?
Oh, other than the
Yes.
adjacent to that water fountain, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so Jennifer,
more center in that lawn, adjacent to the other side and further away from the water fountain, maybe a little bit closer to the monument itself on that grassy lawn there.
So Jennifer, let me ask you this. Are you going to go back, so to speak, and rework the proposal based on our recommendations, or and then come back to us, or do you want us to give you a letter of support? With my guess, it would be, given we've heard from a couple of people already about moving it, and you seemed amenable to it. Did you want to, if the committee agreed, to give you a letter of support with the change in it?
I think that it would be helpful to have a letter of support, but identify that you guys are suggesting that it not be placed, in its current location directly across from the water fountain, and that the suggestion is to move it closer to the monument, if I'm understanding, and also just farther away from the fountain itself.
And on the other side to the other side of that fountain.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So when do you need to submit this letter? Assuming we give you one.
So we are going to present first at the Landmarks Preservation Commission. I think that public hearing is on the 6th of April. And it's my understanding that ideally they would like to have at least a letter by then. But if not, then if you wanted us to come back, we can let them know and then submit the letter after that. But ideally, if you can get the letter of support with those suggestions that you're making before the 6th, that would be very helpful.
That's good to know. Thank you. All right. So do I hear a motion in response to this request? Mr. Smith. Dwight?
Move to write a letter of support along the lines that we've been discussing.
All right, where we would recommend
that they move, that we support the concept of the plaque in Boulder, but support its move from the currently planned location to somewhere closer to the monument, and in any event further from the water fountain. Now, I don't know what that does for Suzanne's issue with the sledding hill and how we get that in there.
No, that was a different project, Dwight.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Okay. Thanks. All right, do I have a second to that motion? Andrew. Okay. Any discussion on the motion?
Just one little
Sure.
more clarification than anything. When I say moving it away from that to the other side of that fountain, it could also be in line center with the, if I hope I'm correct on this, but in line center with the headquarters building, the lawn, the monument. It could be just more symmetrical looking, perhaps is the right word. For the placement to be that way. In other words, not just dropped somewhere in that grassy area, but sort of placed more aesthetically, right in line with the monument and the headquarters building. And of course, away from that water fountain, which I think is clear.
Dwight?
Well, do we want to make specific reference to it being surrounded by or located in a planter bed like this line sort of suggested? I mean, because that sounds like the really good idea, particularly if that works for keeping the dogs out, which deals with the Mr. Lewis issue. And in any event, just makes it stand out more, just because it's surrounded by flowers or whatever.
So, Dwight, I believe this is your motion. So,
Yeah.
Taya, I think Dwight could just amend his motion on his own, right?
Yes.
And did you want to incorporate anything that you just heard from Lenny, or?
No, I think it's
Okay.
it ultimately is going to be a site visit by the planning team that has some. I mean, these are landscape designers in the first instance, so the kind of stuff that he's talking about, the aesthetics element will be part of their analysis, I presume. And so whether we need to make
am I
we'll
right
also,
then? Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
And I was going to say, and we'll also take into consideration just how the spaces are used. I want to make sure we're not displacing anyone if that lawn is used for any sort of regular programming by the visitor center when there isn't COVID happening. I know a couple of years ago there were like yoga classes that were held on that lawn, so we'll keep all of that in mind because we don't want to displace any use that may take place on that lawn.
That sounds great. So if I understand it now, the motion pending is to move that we approve the design, but recommend that it be moved closer to the monument and to the other side of the water fountain, and that it be surrounded by some sort of planting bed, at least partially.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Right. Okay. All right. Any other discussion on the motion? And do I need Andrew to second that motion as it was redone by Dwight? He's seconding it anyway. Okay. So just to be safe. All right. All right. Committee members then, all in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? Carolyn, I can't see how you're voting. Oh, you have your hand raised. Was that initially? Okay. Taya, did you see when Carolyn had raised her hand?
I did not, but I was just going to mention that her hand
raised it at the beginning of the
vote. Thank you. All right, so it's unanimous to issue the letter of support. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here tonight and being so understanding of the concerns that were raised here and being agreeable to address them.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing your time with me.
Thank you. Okay, we're just going to hop on now to the next item in the agenda, which would be the responses to the fiscal year 2022 budget requests, the responses to the requests. And I had those papers here. I don't have them now. I think our goal is, I'm hoping people had looked at, there were about 4 or 5 of them there that related to the Parks Committee. And I think at this point, it'd be nice to think that going forward, perhaps we would get responses other than we have now. You know, this is the Parks Department, this is go to another agency, but these are the kinds of responses we have had. And Taya, I think, are we looking to move things around in order, or are we looking for more information from the agencies on these?
1 second, I'm going to project if you'd like to call them out.
Okay, sure. All right.
So these are the responses from the various agencies to the requests by the complete board. So if you'd like to review individual points related specifically to the parks requests, you could do that. This timeline is what's most important. So this happens, these dates are the same every year. So we submit the SDNBR in October, they get back to us in January. The next step is that the City Council will hold public hearings on the executive budget in May. And at that time, community boards may comment again. So if any of the individual committees of CB2 would like to make comments, we need to do that this month so that they can be voted, the total comments can be voted on for approval in the April 14th general meeting. So the Parks Committee's comments would need to be registered by April 6th, April 7th. You could do that during the meeting, or you could do it as a working committee offline. It's up to you. Because there's no work to be done per se. It's simply registering their comments and letting them know if you have any feedback.
Well, I did look at these. Did anyone have a chance to look at these and wanted to comment tonight about them?
Yeah, Barbara.
This is the first example.
Yeah, I did review, I did go through all of them today as well, and would say that I don't have any feedback on them. I share, your line of thinking, Barbara.
I looked at them as well, and I guess my issue is, out of the 5, 3 of them require. The comment says go to the local officials for more money, and and the question is, what do we do about those? Those are number 6, number 15, number. There's one more. But these are ones that say, the community board should contact their local officials when we're talking about trying to get these things funded. And so I'm not sure what the value of a comment on this stuff is, since it requires us lobbying these electeds for money for these specific projects. How do we deal with that issue? I mean, that's, if they're saying that the only way we'll get these things funded, these particular ones, is that we've got to get support from the council, then what is our strategy for that? Who lobbies those?
Mm-hmm. My feeling was, at least my personal feeling was, Dwight, well, we certainly got some of those responses back on a couple of those parks. We also, there's a bunch that are in progress.
Yeah.
Commodore Barry, Cadman, and then what's not represented there are the 2 parks in Fort Greene that Lori Cumbo recently funded. So for me, on balance between what was in progress and the Lori Cumbo work, I felt like parks were getting I don't know, I felt like the responses were fine. Just sort of looking holistically at where we are in this year. But that's just my personal opinion.
Sure. Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying. And I'm not aware with the Laurie combo thing.
And the playground there.
Yeah, and Suzanne's going to talk more about them later this evening.
Okay.
Does anyone else on the committee want to talk about these responses? Okay, well, I guess what I would say is, and Taya, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I get the sense that there is not an overwhelming desire to respond to this, but if anybody has any comments, they should get them into the office in the next day or two so that you would have them.
Perfectly fine to have no comment as a committee.
Okay.
If that should change, the committee as a whole, so actually they should go to you.
Okay.
As the committee chair, the committee as a whole should submit their comments by April 7th.
All right, so then I would ask you, if you do have any comments, please send them to me by Friday, this Friday, which I believe is the 19th of March. Okay, so that brings us to the chairperson's report. And
Mr. Lesnowski has his hand up.
oh, sorry. You have to unmute, Andrew.
But Barbara, I just would ask you, beg you, to allow us over the weekend to send the comments to you.
All right, Taya is saying okay.
April. I mean, we're just in the middle of March, not in the middle of April.
Okay, all right. But we have a lot on the agenda.
Good.
All right, now I wanted to first of all, I'll mention I did go see the new statue yesterday of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That's at City Point, and I had read somewhere that you needed an appointment to go see it. That's inaccurate. You just walk right in. It's right at an entrance, and so if you're interested in seeing it, it's there now. And you know it's on 2 steps with the idea that you might want to stand on the steps next to her. So and I have a feeling it was in the planning stages before she had died. So as you know, there's another monument coming with a major committee looking at it, appointed by the governor. So I wanted to move up. So in my continuing my chairperson's report, I had asked people, it wasn't just me, but the board had asked if people had any comments about Speaker Johnson's proposal. Now, as I mentioned, I didn't hear any discussion of this at the general meeting last week, and I'm not sure if there's been any progress in the procedural path that this is following. But Taya, maybe you can give us an update on that. Is there still time to comment on it from the whole board if the board makes that determination?
Yes, thank you, Barbara. I think Carolyn and I have both been trying to encourage all of the committees since December. We really encourage all of the committees to take a careful read of that document. We've prepared sort of a Cliff's Notes cheat sheet for you. It's just about 20 slide decks 20 images that condense all of the information from both the 50-page report, the pro arguments, the con arguments, and recent news coverage about it. It is an important issue for community boards. If you want to, there is no city council meeting currently scheduled, but as you all know, these things can change in a minute. So we very much urge you to take some action on it.
And again, do you want to hear from us as a committee as a whole? Should individuals write directly to you?
In this particular instance, because it is a topic that sort of bridges all of the committees, and I believe Ms. Church has been encouraging her committees in the same way, any committee could take the initiative to take an action on this and bring it to the general meeting for full board discussion. It's just a matter of which committee is going to take that initiative.
Well, it seems a lot. The report is geared to land use, so I don't know if the land use
That's true.
and marsh preservation committee has that.
I would say none of the committees have discussed it at
your scenes, but I started reading.
Oh,
say this again. I lost you.
Your audio is cutting in and out of it.
I hear your response.
Chair Zollergringer, you might want to cut
I'm
your
sorry.
video feed.
Did you say that other committees have discussed it or not?
Oh.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Can I ask you to cut your? Yes. Hopefully that improves it.
Okay.
Could you repeat the last thing you said, please?
I wasn't sure whether you said that other committees have discussed it or not.
They have discussed it just as you are discussing it. No committee has taken action on it.
All right. So in that case, can I ask people to also get back to me by next Monday if you want the committee to take a closer look at it, and if there are particular issues that you think are, I think we can talk about issues that pertain to parks or in general even. I know a big concern for the Parks Committee is more park space. So that's certainly related to land use. So maybe that's something that we want to try to address and bring to their attention. And I think in general, to me, the role and the power of the community boards, I think it is something that is also significant and speaks to this proposal. So, all right. That said, yes, Carolyn.
This is Carolyn. I just wanted to say I would like for the committee members to take particular note of what happens to the participation of the community board in this proposal. We are only advisory, but this would lessen even that advisory role, and I think we need to look at that. I don't want us to let it just get by us.
Yeah, Carolyn, because I was looking at it today as well, and I saw that as one of the noted concerns, but then it was refuted. So I'm actually a little confused about that. Yeah. How is it actually? How is the community board's role diminished in your understanding, anyway?
Well, because the hearings are lessened, and the role of having public hearings are diminished, and the number that are required, and the override by the council president and the mayor. So I just read it and see if you don't come up with the same conclusion, please.
Okay. And does the proposal include, I thought I heard that it included a city planner for each community board. Am I making that up, or
I didn't see it. I think it talks about planning in general, but I don't know that it, I have to look at it more closely to see if it addressed that concern.
Yeah. And maybe it was in some of the discussion that I read around it.
Yeah. So, all right. I think that brings an thank you to everyone. So now we come to other committee business, and we have two items under that. The first one has to do with what we've been talking about as Willoughby Square or Abolitionist Square. And I'm going to turn this over to Eleni DiCervo from the New York City Economic Development Corporation. Eleni, are you here?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. And I apologize if I didn't get your name right. Nobody ever pronounces mine right. So
No, that was perfect. Thank you. So I am coming to this committee with, I think, a question really for discussion. So I think you all had been working with my colleague, Rikita Costa, who has since left EDC. And so I'm picking it up on an interim basis. And, you know, trying to piece together the different pieces and working on being responsive to the community board. And so at the last community presentation on this project, what I think we had said is that there would be a process for renaming of the Plaza area. You know, I think it's important to note that this area is within DCAS's jurisdiction, and EDC is sort of the managing entity, working with the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership. And so it's not within the Department of Parks and Recreation. It's not mapped parkland. And so as I was trying to map out like what a process could be for engagement, I also came across the 2019 letter from this community board where you all voted on renaming this area, Abolitionist Place Park. And so for the reasons that I had mentioned earlier, that it's not mapped parkland, it's actually similar to, my understanding is that it's more similar to like the Metro Tech Common, where, you know, that's also open space and not a park. And so it could be called Abolitionist Place Plaza, Abolitionist Place Common. I think we're open to interpretation, and I want to make sure that we're maintaining the integrity of what the community board originally intended. And so that's why I'm here tonight, is really just to have a discussion on, you know, where you all stand on this. You know, it seemed silly to me as I was going through planning with our marketing team, like, should we have an open sort of call for names to land on something totally different from what the community board has already said that they're interested in? And so if that's the sort of minor tweak to it, I wanted to see if that's something that the community board would be open to. From EDC's perspective, no decision has been made. We wanted to make sure that it was an open conversation with the board that represents this community.
thank you for that, Eleni. It was my understanding, I thought that you were looking to have it renamed to Abolitionist Plaza.
I mean, so that's a suggestion. Like I said, I was trying to maintain the integrity of what was outlined in the letter. And so my thought process when I was speaking with Taya, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Fine. It's Taya.
Taya, okay. When we were speaking on the phone, what I had said was that, you know, like I said, we can't name it park within the name. So we could do Abolitionist Place Plaza. You know, that's a little bit alliterative and people would shorten it. So the acronym would be APP. I wasn't sure how folks would feel about that. And so, like I said, we are somewhat indifferent as a, you know, barring the sort of constraint that it can't have park in the name. So it could be Abolitionist Place Plaza, Abolitionist Square, Abolitionist Common. You know, I just kind of like went through the synonyms of what maintains that ethos of like a gathering space, right, within the community for folks, and has that history of abolitionists that is so important to this community. And, you know, that's why we went with the theme In Pursuit of Freedom.
Okay, Andrew? Andrew, did you have some? You have to unmute. You had your hand raised. All right, Dwight, you wanted to speak?
Can I speak now?
Andrew, all right, Andrew first, then Dwight. Okay.
I have absolutely no negative
Chair.
comment or whatever about naming it, renaming it, or identifying it better as affiliated with the abolition movement, period. Absolutely not. I was so moved.
Dwight, Andrew, excuse me a minute. Dwight, I think you need to mute. Can you mute yourself, Dwight? I think we're getting some background noise. So that's why I can hear Andrew, but I guess others can't.
Actually, it's Mr. Lastowski's connection that is weak. Sorry about that.
Madam Chair.
What I heard Mr. Andrew Lastowski say was that he has absolutely no problem with supporting.
No problem fixing a correct name to this Plaza, Park, Commons, whatever. And I especially moved last week with the Girl Scouts and their presentations was fabulous. The only thing is when I was going through all my notes, never did I find anything with our committee and this area other than Willoughby Square Park. Okay, so if you could steer me to wherever I could fix my mind, where we, in 2019 or before that, decided to change it, I would really appreciate it. But other than that, I have absolutely nothing against us properly naming it, considering what we were talking about last week with the Girl Scouts. When we were talking about it, they were presenting about the
Mr. Lastowski, I'm going to ask if you could also pause your video feed, because that might improve your audio feed. Okay, go ahead.
I really was moved by last week's presentation by the Girl Scouts and their leaders. So I'm you know, jumping up and down, taking that under consideration. All I'm asking for, if somebody could steer me to the document when we decided to change it to Abolitionist Square, Plaza, or whatever, because I have not found it in any of my notes. In my notes, I always saw it as Willoughby Square Park.
Okay.
May I just respond to just one comment there?
Sure, sure.
Within the city's materials and including within the letter from October 18th, 2019 from the community board, this area has always been referenced as Willoughby Square, not Willoughby Square Park. So that's not a change on the city side. It's always been known that because it's not mapped parkland, that we can't refer to it as a park.
It was always referred to as.
I'm confused.
Dwight, do you want to say something, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't been able to get in. It's sort of been blocked out or something, but I guess I'm confused about the notion that it can be called the park. Notwithstanding that it's owned by or managed by EDC, but I guess I don't understand that, since we do have parks, open spaces that are deemed parks that are not managed by parks department. And to the extent that those exist, it is unclear to me why you are saying that EDC cannot name this thing Willoughby Square Park.
Sorry, I think the beeping is every time I mute and unmute. Apologize for that. So what my understanding is from the planners that have been working on this project is that because it's not mapped parkland, it's not within the jurisdiction of the Department of Parks and Recreation, therefore not have park in the name. If there are other open spaces that have that, like that be an informal naming of it, and I can't speak directly to that. But from the city's perspective, my understanding is that if it's not managed by the city agency that's in charge of that, we wouldn't be able to name it a park in the name. And so I was hoping that we could have a conversation with the community board about, what, barring having an open process, is there another way for us to work through, can we come to a compromise where it's still an open space, it's still a gathering space, it simply doesn't have park within the formal name of Willoughby Square, and instead it's abolitionist something, square, common, plaza, not park.
So I just want to clarify something here, because you started out by saying you wanted to have a discussion on this, but I'm trying to remember that letter of recommendation must have been from the whole board, not just from the committee. Am I right, Taya?
That's right.
Yes.
Right. So it would seem to me that if we were going to recommend that or support some other name, we would have to take it, take a vote on it and then send it back to the whole board to approve it.
That is my understanding.
Okay.
I think, Taya, you had said the executive committee possibly.
Yes, unfortunately, the deadline for that was today, and it does not seem likely that that's going to happen. So the next opportunity would be the April 14th meeting. And I just, if I, Eleni, you've done such a great job of explaining. If I could try to simplify it even further. So there is a property currently called Willoughby Square. CB2 already voted in 2019 to change the name from Willoughby Square to Abolitionist Place Park, which was aligned with the renaming of that street to Abolitionist Place. What Eleni has brought to our attention is that it cannot be named Abolitionist Place Park because park is a city-defined architectural usage term. It is not a park. It has never been a park. That's why it's called Willoughby Square. So she's suggesting that it can't be called park. So the question is, what would we like to append at the end of abolitionist? And the suggestion was Abolitionist Plaza. But if that is not amenable to the committee is welcome to suggest something else. The point is that it just can't end in park. So the question is not about abolitionist. That's already been decided. It's only about park. That's got to go.
Taya, thank you very much for doing that. Now, are there other committee members besides Dwight and Andrew who want to weigh in on this, who haven't spoken yet?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes. We do have plenty of spaces that have the name park in them, so I don't see why we can't call it park. It will not have the Parks Department's little insignia that shows that it is under its jurisdiction, just like those other places do not. So I don't quite understand why that applies here and it doesn't apply everywhere else.
Andrew?
Yeah, I
some insight.
That's an insight, but a very big one. And the Parks Department has absolutely no problem. We have Brooklyn Bridge Park. It's not called anything else but Brooklyn Bridge Park. No jurisdiction of the Department of Parks over it. And there are other areas in the city that Parks does not have park in.
Chair Zolliger, I believe Ms. Carol Ann Church would like to speak.
Okay, I was just wondering, would it make any difference if we called it Abolitionist Park Plaza? Carol Ann, go ahead. Thank you for being here.
Oh. Hi. Actually, Taya got the response I wanted to make about the Abolitionist Place name.
Okay.
Thank you.
ADM Carol Ann Church has been here 12 times longer than I, so thank you for that.
I'd like to just say something quickly.
Oh, Lenny, is that you?
Yes, that's me.
Okay.
If it used to be Willoughby Square, named after, because it was Willoughby Street, was on. What's wrong with Abolitionist Square now that it's on Abolitionist Place?
No problem. Are you making a motion?
I guess maybe I am.
Is there a second to the motion to recommend that it be called Abolitionist Square?
Chairs all agree. There are some members of the public that have been waiting to weigh in as well.
Okay. All right. Mr. Morris, did you want to speak? You have to unmute, please.
Mr. Morris, you're muted. There you go. You're unmuted. We should be able to hear you. Go ahead. Oh, if you're calling in on 2 devices, you'll need to make sure that you're unmuted on one of them. The easiest way to do that would be to hang up the video device and then turn on the audio device.
Hang up the.
Actually, I
hear
think
me
you're
now?
coming through. Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Okay, the whole board voted unanimously for Abolitionist Place Park, as the prior board member pointed out. Brooklyn Bridge Park doesn't come under the jurisdiction of parks. It's called a park. I'm kind of old school. If it walks like a duck, if it talks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, then it's a duck. And so if it looks like a park, and it's been called a park for like 15 years by just about everybody, including EDC, then why do they want to fool around and call it something else now? This is pretty dubious. And really is very dubious. The name is fine. The whole board voted for it unanimously. Abolitionist Place Park. It has a lot of greenery. It's a nice size. It don't need to be. Their rationale that if it isn't under the park's jurisdiction, that it can't be called a park is totally bogus. Also, even in the RFP and the signed contract from 2008 that was rendered legally with money changing hands, substantial money, like more than $1 million, that changed hands from EDC to the Brooklyn Historical Society, called the space a park in the contract. So this floating of the idea to call it, first of all, they never even had the courtesy to respond to the chair's Lenny's letter to the president of EDC dated from October of 2019. They never had the courtesy to respond could they please refer to it. We actually submitted a name change in the city council to call it a park because we weren't getting any response to EDC. Now finally, for some reason, they okay, we'll use abolitionism. Gee, thanks. But we'll call it a plaza or a square or what, anything but a park. When it was in the contracts from 2008, from the RFPs from 2007. So the committee needs to dismiss this. It just needs to be dismissed. Thank you.
All right. Does any other member of the public in attendance want to speak to this issue? Mr. Fine? Todd?
Yes. Well, first, I think, what this all needs to be put in the context of EDC intentionally refusing to speak with dozens and dozens of activists on Duffield Place, 227 Duffield, and the historians who are involved in the abolitionist movement. We're activists who spend hundreds and hundreds of hours every year on these issues. Never once in 10, 15 years have ever been contacted on EDC about any preference regarding this, including on this issue, which is floated at the last minute, attempt to railroad this committee without even preparation. I mean, we have a speaker here who comes saying we have a legal reason that we can't name it a park. But what's the statute? Oh, I was told by somebody or other in my my agency. I'm new here. The previous person had told me. That's not acceptable for a committee to vote on anything today. If there's any chance that you actually would take this seriously, you would say, okay, come with the statute, come with the legal reasoning. Where's the preparation? You've talked to everybody. EDC has done nothing that we should expect of a community process here. Neither talk to the stakeholders or come with the legal reasoning. And the legal reasoning is bogus on its face. We have other parks. People mentioned Brooklyn Bridge Park. There's also Battery Park City, which has Pump House Park, Rector Park, many parks that are administered by a state agency and a public-private agency, not by the Parks Department. Also Hudson River Park, another park not managed by the Parks Department. There's nothing in the law. Now, even if it was only about the map, I'm not sure if Brooklyn Bridge, it seems to me like Brooklyn Bridge Park is on the city map, but if it's not, that's something that EDC should research. And I would also like to add that by not naming it a park, they actually diminish their own multi-million-dollar park project. Their architect on their website, as Mr. Duggan pointed out, has Willoughby Square Park. Why would we spend $6 million and put greenery all over the place and not call it a park? It's just insulting. And I think the real reason here is because they actually, in my opinion, is they want to diminish Abolitionist Place, which is linked to Duffield, 227 Duffield, as the anchor of this space, which is what community activists have been talking about, which is the reason that they had to make the concessions a label to this park. They don't want this to be the centerpiece. They want to serve these billionaire developers who are surrounding the park and have an anodyne name that is not specific to the specific history there. Thank you.
Chair Zollergringer, Mr. Rothblatt would also like 2 minutes.
All right. Thank you for reminding our speakers about the 2-minute rule.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for letting me speak. My name is Raul Rothblatt. I just want to quickly note that Atlantic Yards was changed to Pacific Park, and it's actually a very similar ownership structure. That's a state project. This is a city, but it's essentially the same thing. And it's just rather ironic that the EDC didn't seem to speak up over that name change. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Eleni, would you like to respond to some of these comments?
Sure. So a lot of the examples that were mentioned are mapped parkland that are run, by a conservancy or a private entity. They may not be run by the Department of Parks and Recreation, but they are, in many instances, mapped parkland. As I mentioned, our reasoning is not meant to be nefarious. We want to coordinate with City Hall on 227 Duffield to the extent that they continue to move that forward. And, we want to, from my perspective, I had picked up from a colleague, and this seemed like somewhere where we could be responsive to the community board. And so I saw that letter, and my first instinct was to reach out to see if there's a way that we could work together. The conversation doesn't have to end tonight. The goal is really to see, if this seemed like something where we could come up with a name so that next time we come and present on, with the Department of Cultural Affairs on the artwork or on the plaza, that we're not, as you had mentioned at the last community board meeting, having our presentation say Willoughby Square, and that we can come with the new name. And so that was honestly my intent here, is to be responsive where I could be.
Well, thank you for that. I have another question. Does changing the name, taking out the word park, change the have any effect on that area itself? Does it mean, you say it's going to be managed, it's not going to be managed by the Parks Department, it's going to be managed by DCAS.
It'll be managed by the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership in coordination with EDC, the way other plazas in the area are managed. Metro Tech Commons is the closest example that I can think of.
Okay, and does it have any impact on the hours that it is open?
Nope, it'll still remain publicly accessible open space, the standard hours.
Okay, and is there anyone here from the Downtown Partnership this evening?
I don't believe so. We had connected, and so I had let them know that I would be coming to the community board for this discussion. And I've been keeping Regina Meyer and her team abreast of the situation as it unfolds. And so I told her that I would give her an update on how this conversation went.
All right, I have one more issue to bring up. Which I want to give our other committee business person an opportunity to speak before we address that other issue per se, which is not on the agenda for this evening. But it's our understanding that the artwork that we reviewed very recently in this committee, which was going to be lots of words for this, has not been accepted. So I was wondering what the status is of the artwork projected for this area.
Sure. So I can't speak to the specifics because the Department of Cultural Affairs wasn't able to join today. But what I will say is that the artist was selected that was presented to the community board back in early January, and that hasn't changed. When we presented to the Public Design Commission, what they had said is that we are tabling this vote because, frankly, the art has not been designed. And so hoping to get from the artist Camila a plan for community engagement over the coming weeks, which we're happy to discuss with the board before it kicks off to make sure that we're not missing any stakeholders. And so that will then lead to further design of the actual artwork. At this stage, what the Percent for Art process has done is select the artist. And that's the last update that the community board received. Nothing has changed since then.
Okay, so I can you stay with us for a little bit longer this evening?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, because I want to turn to Suzanne Quint to talk about the visioning sessions for 2 parks, playgrounds in the area, which she didn't get enough time to speak about last time. And then I want to come back to the issue about the artwork for this, and also come back to the notion, is this committee this evening going to take any action on your discussion about the naming of this area? So I want to turn it over. Thank you for that, Elaine. I'm going to turn it over to you, Suzanne.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. I wanted to just report on the visioning sessions that Parks Department held virtually for work that's going to be done on Greene Playground and Kyler Gore, both in the Fort Greene area. Barbara and I attended those visioning sessions. I think Taya was also there, and maybe some others as well that I didn't catch on screen. But first of all, just to say, doing the visioning sessions virtually, I thought was highly successful. And there was a huge degree of community engagement. And I believe it's the Parks Department's hope that they will be here in June to present the plans coming out of those visioning sessions. And I guess we're holding a space for them. Is that right, Taya? Holy yes. So Greene Playground, which is next to PS 11, there are about 20 or 25 community participants. And I'll just share a few highlights of what people wanted so that we can bear in mind as we move towards the Parks Department coming back and sharing their designs with us. Well, the first thing I thought was funny was that everything in the playground is currently painted red, but the park is green playground. It's not green because of the color, but there were community members that were like, "Yeah, it'd be great if things were painted green," because that would really, go with the name. So I just thought that was funny and maybe worthy of consideration. As a playground, people were interested in gating the tot lot that is there for parents of little ones, music panels, elevated bridges to give children a better view of the neighborhood, a spray feature. In both sessions, people mentioned the linear sprinkler that exists in Domino Park in Williamsburg. I think that's just got a lot of favorability and comes up from the ground, it's engaging, and it also facilitates an open, flexible space. There was asking for stuff for older kids, picnic tables for birthday parties, a garden. And the final thing that I would bring up about that space is that there's the playground and then there's an asphalt area that is adjacent to the playground. And the funding that Councilman Cumbo provided, Parks responded that that is just enough for the playground. There actually seemed to be a bit of a disconnect at the session there because I think she had thought or hoped that the funding would also cover the asphalt area, which also has some needs. And she did ask for, I think, Parks to take another look or reconnect with her to see if perhaps the asphalt area could be encompassed into the plan. So I don't know where that stands. So that's Greene Playground, and I can move on to Kyler Gore Park, unless anyone has any questions. So Kyler Gore Park, that input session took place on January 12th, and $5 million is the amount of funding that Council Member Cumbo has secured and granted towards this project. There were over 100 attendees at the visioning session, which started with talking a little bit about the history of the park and the name, and I didn't know that Reverend Kyler proceeded over the Lafayette Avenue Presbyterian Church, which was the largest Presbyterian church in the United States at the time, and was a noted abolitionist. Gore refers to the shape of a park, a narrow triangle, so Kyler Gore. Some of the themes that came through from the community, definitely the idea of building on it being a community meeting and walking by space, just due to the nature of sort of the layout and the placement of that park. It's very much a community meetup space, and people love that and want to keep the character of the park. I jotted down that people don't want it to be newfangled, shiny, brightly colored, modern design. That's not what folks are looking for. They want to honor the neighborhood's culture and the social justice leadership of the Fort Greene community. People like that the park is open with multiple entrances. They find that very inviting. And there's a desire, however, to be able to walk among the greenery and the trees more. Currently, the perimeter and green spaces, the way the park is designed, you can't walk amongst them all. So there's some thoughts that those are underutilized today and that can be improved. So suggestions were for a winding nature path, a contemplative garden, reading nooks within the greenery and pathway. The tree canopy is cherished in that park, as they typically are. People called out the magnolias in particular. And then in terms of how the park functions, there are some things for children in that park, and the feeling was the right amount of space is allocated for playground area and play area. It doesn't need to be more space for that, although there was an interest in swings specifically. but a desire maybe instead of having everything to be so separated, maybe have it be a more integrative, flowy design where the play area is integrated with nature more, obviously with the safety considerations taken into consideration. And then also just noting that there's 3 senior living homes immediately around Kyler Gore. So considerations for that community should be taken as well. And then the programming ideas really stem from this whole idea of it being a community meeting place. Green market, composting, dance parties were mentioned by several people. It sounds like there's very community-driven dance parties that pre-COVID were existing there and very popular. Community block parties, movable seating for events and performances. The only thing I'll just end on is Commissioner Brooklyn Parks Commissioner Marr said at the beginning of the session that the park cannot support a dog park. And even with that, people, I would say it was what I heard was sort of equal parts people saying they really wanted a dog park and others saying that the park wasn't suited. But I didn't jot down the exact reasons why, but Commissioner Marr was very clear.
Actually, Suzanne, I think because the area that would be suitable for a dog run is right over the subway.
Okay, yeah, so
they couldn't go down there. But I really appreciate your very comprehensive report and waiting from last month. So thank you. Now I want to jump back, and I'm not quite sure how to do this now. As I mentioned, I know there are a number of representatives here from the Girl Scouts, and the Girl Scouts gave a very detailed, very comprehensive report last week at the general meeting as to the group of statues they would like to see put up in, let's call it Abolitionist Square Park for the moment. And they are not on the agenda for this evening. And we are running late. So what I would propose is that we have tonight one representative from the Girl Scouts talk about their concerns so that you can hear them, Eleni, and take them back with you. And then we'll try to quickly see where the committee stands tonight on your, so we're going to kind of combine the other committee business with the community forum for the moment. No, I'm looking to have one speaker because, as I said, the Girl Scouts will probably have you come back next month when we can give you a full presentation. As I said, you were not on the agenda for this evening, so I thought it would be good if one representative speaks. It could be whichever one of you, and then next month I believe we will have time for you to come back and make a full presentation. So is there one person who wants to speak about your proposal for the park?
Is Mala on? Does anybody know if Mala's on? Can we get a second? Because I think there was one person who would like to speak. I think there's.
I think what we need to know is what the, we had a full presentation on this. I could tell you about it. But I do want to give you the opportunity to speak tonight, even though you're not on the agenda and we're running late in the evening. And I think it's appropriate to talk about it while we're talking about the Willoughby green space.
Well, I think you ought to say something.
All right. Well, Charlotte's here. I just want to say that we just had a.
And again, 2 minutes, please. Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll have Charlotte, my daughter, speak, since unfortunately some of our other girls have been waiting very patiently. But this was just a small portion of the of our justification for this. But I'll let my daughter speak instead.
Thank you.
My name is Sarah Ross, and I'm a member of Girl Scouts in Massachusetts. When I was in 5th
I think you need to speak a little louder, please.
Hello, my name is Charlotte Rothblatt, and I am a member of Girl Scout Troop 2663. When I was in 5th grade, I gathered signatures to rename my elementary school PS9 after Sarah Smith Barnett, since she was the first Black woman principal in New York. We succeeded in renaming the school, and now I'm here supporting the Sisters and Freedom Monument at Abolitionist Place.
Charlotte, come a little closer to the microphone,
Yes.
please.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Hello, my name is Charlotte Rothblatt, and I am a member of Girl Scout Troop 2663. When I was in 5th grade, I gathered signatures to rename my elementary school, PS9, after Sarah Smith Barnett, since she was the first Black woman principal in New York. We succeeded in renaming the school, and now I am here supporting the Sisters and Freedom Monument at Abolitionist Place. I am 12, so it is amazing to me that Sarah Smith Barnett started teaching at the age of 14 in Brooklyn. I want everyone to know that she co-founded the first Black women's suffrage club in this neighborhood, so we should do more to honor the Black women who fought against the white supremacy, even among other suffragists. She mentored other women who became influential, including Ida B. Wells. I have worked to support the strong women on Duffield my entire life. I came to 227 Duffield when I was a few months old. Last March, I met Nicole Hannah Jones when we renamed 3rd Street to honor Ida B. Wells. Today, I'm asking you to take the next step and support the Sisters and Freedom Movement. Women need to be.
Okay. Thank you. So I think what the Girl Scouts would like to see is a sculpture of 4 women. There are only 7 women, I believe, real women for whom there are statues in New York City. And so I don't know, as I said, we'll have them come back next month, and Eleni, maybe you could come back as well. We'll give them more time to make a full presentation. I don't know where this fits in to the proposal, or I think in addition you could very well, in addition to the artist you have now, also have a sculpture if that fits in. So we will get back and talk more about that next time. But now we need to go back to the idea of the naming of this area. Now, committee members, in terms of, do we want to make a recommendation tonight about changing the name of this space? And if so, do committee members have some thoughts on this? Dwight?
Well, yeah, I do have a thought on it. And in the first instance, which doesn't go exactly to the question of a proposal, is and maybe this is something that Eleni can answer or get an answer on, since she is relatively new, is that I'm confused in that, to the extent that the community board passed the resolution to rename as the Abolition Park, Square Park 2 years ago, why there was no response that said, geez, this can't be done, for all those reasons that Eleni appears to be alluding to. And so I'm stunned that here we have thought for several years that the renaming was pretty much a done deal, and suddenly some new person comes along and determines in reviewing the documents that no, this shouldn't be the case, and now we need to rethink this. That's my problem. I personally am not in favor of a, quote, compromise, because I still don't understand why we can have parks that are not controlled by the planning department named as parks. And Eleni has not given us chapter and verse on why that cannot be done and why there are these exceptions out there that are acceptable. So I would vote no in terms of any proposal that arises from someone else.
I would like to second.
Go ahead,
Dwight's
Lenny.
comments.
Yeah.
I would like to second Dwight's comments. I'm relatively new on the board. I'm only a year, a little bit more than a year, board member of the Parks and Recreation Committee. But hearing all this, that all these other parks were called parks by the same so-called supervising committee or corporation. I don't know what the letters stood for exactly off the top of my head. If they were good for the parks along the Hudson River, there's absolutely no reason, and I do not have a good feeling that they would want to change and take the term park out of this one place here, Abolitionist Square Park Plaza. Why they would want to do this at the last minute, after hearing all the background, is kind of appalling. It's a shock to me. It's appalling. It's appalling. On principle, it is a park. Otherwise, if I didn't hear all this and I didn't know about it before, I liked my what I said before, but not after hearing all this. No, who are these people? Or if it's one individual, as was suggested here, who is this person to walk in and say, it's not a park, because I say so? I don't know his reasons. I can't go inside his mind. But I could say, who is he to say no, because I say so? Even though everyone else in my organization before said yes to all the parks.
Suzanne?
Yeah, I mean, I would personally be more amenable or open to a suitable alternate, but still not in favor of taking action at this time. Eleni, I appreciate you coming here and trying to bridge some of the community concerns. I have an experienced EDC to be a strong community partner in terms of communication, so I'm not comfortable taking this word. I would also like to hear what Parks Department says. I don't think we have anyone from Parks on the call. So I would like to get some more meat behind this. Because I do see that there could be a distinction between a Brooklyn Bridge Park and this in terms of how they're managed and operated and all of that, which is why I might be open to it, but I'm not ready to take action based on background and not having all the right people in the room.
Andrew?
I just wanted to say, if in fact we did at one point in time years ago submit paper that we as a community board to on park meeting to abolitionist square park. It's not owned and operated by the parks. Why do we have to approach it that way? I just can't understand that. They're not going to take care of it, are going to insert themselves in the middle of this, say, and you can't call it a park. It makes absolutely no sense. If I'm building a development somewhere else and I want to call it Battery City Park, I do it. And the Department of Park has nothing to say about it. Since they even washed their hands off and said, this is not a park. This is not our park. So if we want to call it a abolitionist square park, we should. Well, anyway, but I really, it is greenery. People have been waiting for a park. It's a park. That's my, my seconding to the motion made before. I'd like to see it as a park.
Any other committee members want to speak on this? Dwight, you want the last word before we move forward?
No, I think I've made my point
Oh,
clear.
okay. I thought you were raising your hand.
Oh, no, I was
Uh,
trying to go into the chat to see that last, I'm
Okay.
sorry, it was the
It's all
last
right.
note I didn't figure out.
All right. I will also mention, I think that it's twofold here. On the one hand, perhaps there is this prohibition that we need more information about. I thought someone made a good suggestion that we hear from the Parks Department. I also know that the chair of the community board does not feel we should revisit items that have already been voted on. And so Taya, maybe you can give us a little direction here, whether do we need a motion perhaps to table this issue till our next meeting, or do we need to take any vote? But we certainly want the Economic Development Corporation to know about the discussion here this evening. So perhaps you can guide us as to next steps right here. Or maybe Carol Ann, is she still here? Maybe the two of you want to weigh in on this?
I think she's hiding.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to start by saying that Eleni's characterization of EDC approaching the community board, taking the initiative to approach us, is correct. And I think, as Ms. Quint said, that has not always been the history, so we do appreciate that. Excuse me, the committee does not have to take any action tonight. It sounds like, I think everyone assumed that the conversation would be, is the committee amenable with changing the name from Abolitionist Place Park to Abolitionist Place Plaza? But what I'm hearing is that before that discussion can happen, Eleni, the committee would first like to know, why can't it be named a park? What would change in jurisdiction, management, funding, or authority if it is called a park versus a plaza? So if that part could be cleared up first, I think it sounds like the committee would be more willing to have this other discussion later. Does that capture everybody's discussion? Nobody's shaking their head, so maybe Mr. Morris says, nah. Eleni, actually, are you able to just address it? It seems like there's one really simple question at the root of this all, which is, why can't it be named a park? Can you explain the legal designation?
Right. It's the same explanation that I have been giving, is that it's not legally mapped parkland, which is the designation that allows us to name something a park, or that it's managed by the Department of Parks and Recreation. And so this is property that would be, as I said, it's under DCAS jurisdiction, managed by EDC and the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership. And so it's very similar to Metro Tech Commons, which is also open space with greenery, with programming, with the standard open space hours of dusk to dawn. It's not like we're putting a fence around it. The design of the open space is not changing. The art is yet to be designed, but the artist is not changing. And so, this is really meant to, as I had said, I had seen the letter, and so I called the community board to see if there was a way that we could be responsive here. That was really my intent. And there wasn't a presentation because originally when we were talking about this would just be a discussion among the community members. And so I didn't want to take it over with a full presentation and full EDC staffers. I really wanted to hear the community board's perspective here at the committee level.
Thank you. The other thing that the committee could do, oh, there's feedback. I think, Eleni, it's on your line. Sorry. The other thing that the committee could choose to do is you could refer it to your colleagues in land use if you would feel more comfortable having architects discuss the differentiation. That is always an option.
No.
I recommend we take no action, but Eleni's welcome to, come back at a later date and with parks, et cetera, if that should be necessary or if that should be of interest.
And maybe Eleni, could you explain what happens if this committee takes no action? If the question of the name is unresolved, what would EDC do?
Sorry. I mean, as I had said, like I think what we have originally said is that there could be an open public process, and so what I've seen other agencies do is host like an online, like not, I don't want to say a competition, but just like an open for names, and then there's a selection panel with representation from the community board, and you know, we can discuss who else is represented on there. I imagine someone from local historical society. I really didn't go down that path much further because I encountered the letter, and so my first stop was the community board to see what else we can do together. But you know, I think that's probably what we would do next. You know, the other question I would have for the community board is, you know, we can have a follow-up meeting. I don't know if there's a subset of folks at the community board that would want to sit down with the planners and we can walk through kind of all of the different rules and why we've come to this conclusion that it can't be, that park can't be in the name. And then we can pick it up at a future meeting after that sit down with planners has occurred, if that's of interest.
I would leave this to Chair Zoller-Gringer, but it seems like that, I don't know that we were expecting this, Eleni, but it seems that that's the crux of the issue. So perhaps the committee would like to request a full presentation as you just described.
Yeah, and as part of
I
that,
leave it to the chair.
Could I make a comment?
Please do, Carolyn.
I think it's the consensus of the committee that the name is Abolitionist Square Park. And unless we get some legal reason why there should be a change, I don't know why we're revisiting all of this and having a big discussion.
Well,
why we would take up more time at another meeting to do the same thing.
What I've heard is that there is a legal reason why it can't be named a park. And I think
But they haven't told us what it is.
It's because it's not governed by the park. It's not mapped as parkland.
But there are plenty of things called park.
But maybe they're mapped as parkland. I mean, what would be the process to get this mapped as parkland?
Good question.
No, the Parks Department doesn't want it under its jurisdiction, for that matter. They don't want another thing to care for. That's one thing. But it wouldn't have that. It would not have the Parks Department's little plaque designates that it is under the Parks Department jurisdiction. But I think we need to make a statement that, you know, we want to see this continue as it has been, unless there is a legal reason. Because we've had all this discussion, and that seems to be the consensus of what the committee is saying.
Well, to me, the most important thing is that there's a green space and that people will be able to enjoy it. I walked past this spot the other day, and I think it's incredible that this open space is there and that there's not a building there. And, you know, in this case, to me, that's what's the most important thing here. It's going to be wonderful. Although we still haven't been given a date as to when the park is, or this area is going to open to the public.
Mm-hmm.
Last time they were not able to tell us. So, you know, we'd love to know that. So, but I think the feeling I get here is some people are very passionate about this being called a park. And I think we have some unresolved issues before we can really talk about this further and give you a recommendation one way or another. So I think, in essence, we're going to table this for tonight and perhaps put it on for the April meeting, as long as that's not a problem, and continue it from there. So, and I appreciate, I did not get the sense that you were new to the EDC, but just new to this particular project. So, I appreciate your being so understanding and patient and open to the concerns raised by this committee. You would think a name of something would be a lot simpler, but doesn't always. Sometimes it's the seemingly simple things that become most complicated. So I want to thank you for that. I'm very quickly going to ask if there's anybody else for community forum tonight. Well, I think we've heard from both of Mr. Rothblatt and Mr. Morris. I think we've already heard from you this evening. We can give you 1 minute. Do you want 1 minute?
Yes, 1 minute would be great.
All right, Mr. Morris, I think I saw his hand first. 1 minute, Mr. Morris. While you're unmuting, we'll hear from Mr. Rothblatt for a minute.
Hi, thank you so much for listening to me. So it sounds, I just want to confirm that the girls will be back next month and that we'll be able to speak, which is awesome. I want to encourage the EDC to reach out to us. I am very willing to talk to them. I think this should be, the vision here is that this is as important as the Statue of Liberty. The abolitionist history in downtown Brooklyn should be a huge attraction to the neighborhood, and I hope it should be part of the vision of a real vibrant destination here. And then my one last other point is that we talked about, in the earlier discussion, there was a talk about having dog pee next to a monument. The current proposal would have the dog park next to 267 Duffield, which is being turned into a cultural spot. And the current vision, the current plan would have dogs peeing on the tunnels that could have possibly been part of the Underground Railroad, where 223 and 225 Duffield used to meet. So if we're going to care about dog pee in Fort Greene Park, I hope we care about not having dog pee on possible sites of an Underground Railroad. So,
thank you for adhering to that 1 minute. Mr. Morris?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. In regards to the placement on the agenda for the Sisters in Freedom group statue proposal, I submitted that formally to the board and you, Madam Chair, several weeks ago, with major letters of support, including the Brooklyn Borough President, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, and the council, and several other elected officials, including Steve Levin. And of course, a ton of grassroots, which you guys are aware of. So I'd like to be clear that you're making this an agenda item for next month.
We're going to do our best to do that, yes.
Yeah. Okay, well then you have my deepest appreciation for putting it on the agenda, because the last communication I got from the board was that this wouldn't, the Sisters in Freedom proposal to be placed in Abolitionist Place Park as per the unanimous vote of the community board in September of 2019 was not going to be able to be heard.
That was a vote for the park, not for the statue. Yes.
No, of course. That's what I'm saying. It was
just
for
clarifying.
The park. We're calling. We want the name to remain as per your chair, not to be revisited. The name that you guys unanimously voted for was Abolitionist Place Park. In September of 2019, the letter was written to the president of EDC in October of 2019, which they never responded to until now, where they've been continued to call it Willoughby Square until now, where they're coming up with this absolutely unsupported rationale to call it a plaza. It's way beyond dubious, and as numerous members of your committee have pointed out, where's the authority? There is no authority. I just want to thank you personally for agreeing to hear.
Okay.
You know,
and thank you for
the
adhering
major
to the
support that
1-minute
we have
rule
for-
or 2-minute rule.
for the
Yeah.
Sisters in Freedom Memorial to be appropriately presented to the committee as a whole. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Taya, do we have anybody else listed for community forum tonight? Taya, nobody?
I'm so sorry, I'm muted. Ms. Denise DeYonker, did you still want to make a comment? I see that you're still on the call. I'm not sure what topics you wanted to speak on.
I don't want to speak. I just wanted to stay on the call because this is the first time in my life I've gone to community board meetings, and I just wanted to see how the rest of the meeting would play out.
Welcome.
Honestly,
All right.
I'm really impressed. Okay.
We
So,
want you to come back.
there you
Keep
go.
coming back. Okay.
All right. I
Thank
will.
you. All right. On that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Andrew, second. Okay, Lenny. I assume there's no one opposed to that. All right. Thank you, everybody, especially my committee members for staying on throughout. And just a reminder that I've asked you to let Andrew know by Friday about a park you would like to sort of adopt or find out some more about, and we'll take it from there. And just another reminder that April 10th and April 17th are the Playground NYC events in Commodore Barry. If you want to be there, or you know a young person who would be interested in attending. So thank you very much, and I want to go have my dinner. So good night. Thank you.
Good night.